All rise.
You may be seated. Please settle. Please settle. Continuing in the matter of LucasFilm and Disney on trial for the murder of the Star Wars franchise. Today, we're about to discuss count 6. Court is now in session. This is Critics Court. Mr. Ng, the count today is count 6. Would you
Your Honor,
please?
is this an appropriate time to make a motion?
I will allow it. I will allow it. Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to make a motion that you recuse yourself as judge, particularly for your conduct and behavior over this past weekend.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Mr. Ng. I think it's inappropriate for you to bring up this motion.
Well, I think it was inappropriate for you to have done what you did.
If I understand you correctly, this has something to do with your daughter and the events this past weekend in Dallas, Texas. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, for the disgrace and dishonor that you have brought upon my daughter and our family.
I will. First of all, I'll allow a brief discussion of this because I want to make sure that something like this does not happen again. Whatever happens outside this courtroom, if it happens outside this courtroom, should not affect the proceedings here today. I know something of what you're talking about, and
yes.
I think when you see here, I had appeared on an internet show called FNT. I was appeared in a group shot with a bunch of individuals with microphones. There was a woman there. That my understanding is that she is your daughter.
That is correct. And I don't know if you're able to, but if you could zoom in on that picture.
Well,
do we have a close-up of that
down
picture?
Very quickly.
Yes. Yes, I believe you are trying to influence the prosecution in a very inappropriate way.
I will say, Mr. Ng, don't make me use the gavel. Let me just say this. If you're sitting on a couch with a bunch of men, and a woman comes to your side and surprises you, that is a look of a surprised man. I am certain that any other person who is approached on the side by anyone, you would have a look of surprise on your face. That is exactly what that is.
Yes, my understanding is your head was in this position for 5 minutes as they are trying to set up this shot.
I believe there's someone else in our gallery here that I believe can discuss and can clear me of your accusations. Your internet daughter, X-Ray Girl, is here.
Hi,
Hello,
Dad.
daughter.
Please, can you
Yes, daughter, can you explain yourself in this picture?
I sat down to take a picture, and Chris got all up in my face. Sorry, Judge Gore, and he told me to call him Daddy, and I'm scared, Dad.
Yes, I had to remind you or tweet you to excuse yourself to the restroom and then leave the building.
Which I did. I did.
Yes, I'm very proud of you for that.
Well,
You-
let me be real for a moment here. Was this before or after the 7 White Claws that were consumed by your daughter? There is more photographic evidence that we could show. I will, to preserve the honor of your internet daughter, Mr. Ng, I will not disclose these pictures, but I will remind you that events that take place out of this courtroom are inadmissible. The personal lives of anyone, the attorneys here today, the witnesses, it is not allowable in this fake courtroom. So,
no, I
anything else to
I
add?
have nothing bad to say about my daughter. Her life is her life, and how she chooses to waste it away is her problem, and I give her full authority over her life in that way. And yes, at times she has brought dishonor to our family. But again, your behavior here is excusable. If you look at the line of sight with your eyes, I find it disgusting and reprehensible. And her mother is crying, weeping, gnashing her teeth. So you have disrupted this family.
Again, Mr. Ng, that is a look of a man that is surprised by a woman that has very quickly breached upon my space. And I would say, if she were my daughter, I would be very proud that she could consume as many White Claws in such a short period of time. So you look on it as dishonor. I say, well done, and you should be proud. But we will no longer. Miss Girl, would you like to anything to add to this situation?
I would like to say I'm very sorry, Dad, Mr. Ng. Let me make that clear. That I did this. I would also say, Judge Gore, you can party hardy, and I'm very surprised. Very surprised. I like Frank Gore a lot.
Well, and thank you. That's all we have from your daughter today, Mr. Ng. I would warn you to refrain from bringing any more personal matters that take place outside this courtroom into the courtroom.
Yes, and I would like to also say that ask you to refrain from any philandering with my daughter. I understand you appreciated her ability to assemble furniture for the Kenobi series, but that is no excuse.
Let us continue today in this matter. We are discussing count number 6. As always, Mr. Blackwood, our court sketch artist, is here with us today. And there you are. That is a drawing of something that may have occurred today. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. You can follow Mr. Blackwood on Instagram. It is, here we are, at go to blackwoodpdx.com and at @Blackwood_PDX on Instagram for Mr. Blackwood's art, as well as sketches from the proceedings on Critics Court. I would also remind people to please, wait, this is your job, Mr. Ng.
Yes, again, My second motion is that you instruct the jury to smash that like button and subscribe, and for the jury over on Rumble to hit the little thumbs up there, and thank them for watching our stream and not Andrew Tate.
Excellent. And if you do spread the word, also feel free to use the hashtag Film Threat Critics Court and hashtag Star Wars on Trial. We'd like more members to join our jury because you watching now are a member of the jury. Now, let us bring on today's prosecutors. Mr. Daniel is joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Connors, Tom Connors is here as also part of the prosecution team. In addition, we have our defense attorneys, Mr. Pixels.
Good evening, Your Honor.
And a Dr. Gordo, PhD. Mr. Pixels, you had mentioned before we started today that you wanted to add something. Please feel free to make your comments here.
Yes, I just would like to address the court today. Yes, my name is Lofti Pixels, and I apologize for my bluish appearance today. Unfortunately, my ship was attacked and ravaged by some indigenous Tuscan savages while I was conducting business on, pardon my French, the Sith hole of a planet, Tatooine. So sadly, I must appear in the Senate today via hologram while I wait repairs. So my service droid, PP69, will be projecting my defense today. Say hi to PP69, everyone. This is my droid here in the background. If you can see him, I will make him bigger in a second when my OBS loads. But thank you for understanding. Thank you. I appreciate it. Excellent.
And I also would like to introduce today's surprise witness. And here is how the proceedings will go today. The prosecution will present their case. There will be chance for cross-examination by the defense. And then the same, we'll have a brief break. We will hear from our jury. We'll also then have an opportunity for the defense to present their case, as well as cross-examination by the prosecution, ending with open debate. This special witness today may be utilized by either side to answer questions, for clarification, and to bolster your case. So please welcome to the court Mr. Rian Johnson, who will be joining us briefly. Mr. Johnson is, my understanding, is the director of The Last Jedi, a sometimes controversial figure in some circles.
Hello. I'm not sure why I'm here. I don't think I ever tweeted anything all that bad. It's like 9 years of stuff written largely off the cuff as ephemera. What's the worst I did? Call some people a bunch of man babies?
I also want to remind people that our Rian Johnson impersonator is using ChatGPT to respond exactly as Rian Johnson would actually respond. Just so everyone is aware.
Notice, like all the space jewelry we added, that was Carrie Fisher's idea. She's a member of the original cast, and she liked me.
Well, let's continue with the proceedings. We will start with Mr. Ng. Mr. Ng, if you would read the count number 6. And thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your attendance in court today. Mr. Ng, if you could read count number 6, which is today's discussion.
Yes, Your Honor. Count number 6. The Film Threat jury, on behalf of the citizens of the Star Wars fandom, charges Lucasfilm Disney with the offense of blatant disregard and threatening of fans. On or about the 30th day of October 2012, Lucasfilm Disney did participate in the flagrant telling of poorly constructed stories that did not appeal to a wide audience and attacked fans with false claims that they criticized the finished product. The aforementioned disregard and threatening actions include, but are not limited to, blatantly ignoring half their audience, attacking fans with claims of misogyny and racism, purposefully dividing the fan base, producing subpar products and merchandising, negligently implementing quality controls or the lack thereof, the flagrant reduction of the importance and visibility of Slave Leia, the creation of Star Wars themed related events, and the locations without legacy characters, and the unethical use of blue milk.
I also want to remind members of our jury who are watching that this document, the counts and the charges are available in a link in the description for this show, so that you may read it for yourself and become a part of this trial. Okay. Now, who would like to begin? Who would like to begin to present on the prosecution? Mr. Daniel, you will go first. Thank you for your attendance here in court. I'm going to put you center screen here. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the chat, Your Honor, and distinguished guests. My name is Paul K. Daniel, and I am here today to discuss the murder of Star Wars and the charge that Disney Lucasfilm did participate in the flagrant telling of poorly constructed stories that do not appeal to a wide audience. Over the last few weeks, the prosecution has cited example after example of hard-hitting facts, but the defense is trying to convince the audience and the jury that none of that really matters. The defense wants to argue definitions of negligence, incompetence, intent, malice, etc., and try to keep the jury distracted. But as Akbar would remind us, it's all a trap. Because unless there is some unearthed email found that states, I, Kathleen Kennedy, intentionally want to destroy Star Wars and cut the audience in half, the defense is going to argue that it doesn't matter what evidence the prosecution brings. But this trial matters. Star Wars matters. It is my opinion and my belief that the murder that has happened with Star Wars is in its very soul. It is the spiritual, psychological, and wisdom faculties of Star Wars that have been killed. How do you murder the soul of an IP? You kill the myth. You kill the hero's journey. You nuke it. You stab it through the heart with the lightsaber, literally and figuratively. It is well known that Joseph Campbell in The Power of Myth heavily influenced George Lucas's work. George wanted to create a modern-day fairy tale with classical heroes and a space opera epic for kids to become better adults, for us to learn about life and become better humans through his great mythos. For those who may not know, myth serves many functions. One of the most important and recognizable functions is the pedagogical, or the wisdom function of life. And this is how humans have helped humans for thousands of years through the universal human condition, whether it's movies, books, plays, stories, religion. And this is at the very heart of what has been tampered with and killed when it comes to Disney Star Wars. It's good to note that when you're watching Star Wars or any good myth, as Campbell pointed out, you are the characters you see on screen. They represent the various differing forces inside of you, and that's how we relate to them. In a very profound way, their adventures are our adventures. And when you connect with really good, well-defined characters, you're connecting with those parts of yourself. And what you see them learn on screen, you can learn. In a psychological and spiritual sense, you are Han, Luke, Leia, but also Anakin, Vader, and the Emperor, and all the choices they make on their journeys, both good and bad. When it comes to Star Wars, there are so many iconic examples people can point to for actual wisdom and learning of life. Luke failing to lift the X-Wing on Dagobah because he doesn't believe he can do it is a classic example. But there are numerous examples of attachment, patience, dealing with fear and loss, greed, how to confront evil, littered throughout episodes 1 through 6 in which George gave us with his mythos. One of my personal favorites, one not talked about a lot, is the trench run in A New Hope. George asks the question through Luke Skywalker, Would you switch off your targeting computer and go with the higher universal flow, the divine consciousness, in a moment where it all mattered? Would you trust your instincts and not go with your head when it counted most? And if you couldn't, wouldn't you like to believe that you could be somebody like that someday? And this is why Star Wars matters. And this is why audiences have universally tuned in. It is the learning of life. It's why we share it with our families, our friends. We want to watch the stories ourselves. And this is the very power and function of myth. And this has what has been murdered. The learning of life, the lessons we all have to learn for our universal struggles. Why forgiveness matters. Why we shouldn't give up on people, friendship, loyalty. Why we shouldn't give up on those parts of ourselves that may stray to the dark side and be tempted. How do we deal with that? And I think as fans, we should be talking about this more, how Star Wars spoke to what matters in life. Everything else being debated is nerd minutia. Murder has occurred, and it is in the myth and storytelling of Star Wars. Contrast what George gave us with Luke Skywalker and all the failures and trials he had to go through with what Disney gave us with Rey. When we see Rey access tremendous abilities without any training or working for it, when she's able to beat people in battle with ease on the first try, when she can repair and fly the Falcon better than Han Solo somehow, when she can pull things through time and space, when she can do Force lightning better than Count Dooku and Palpatine, again, somehow, when she can transfer her Force energy to heal others somehow, when she can do a Jedi mind trick without even knowing what a Jedi mind trick is, again, somehow, and here's the ultimate kicker, she can identify as a Skywalker without actually being one. We are witnessing the fundamental betrayal of what we'd like to learn about life, pass on to our kids, and the hero's journey itself. It's not just that Mary Sue's are cheap narrative shortcuts, though they are that, void of creativity, but it's that they don't relate to how life is. We can't connect with them. There is no wisdom-serving function with the Mary Sue. In fact, it's the inverse of wisdom. It's the wrong message to teach kids. Yoda even tells Luke in Empire, if you choose the quick and easy path, as Vader did, you will become an agent of evil. And that's kind of what Rey's and Mary Sue's represent. And this is not a lesson kids or adults should be reinforced with, that you can take a bunch of shortcuts, you don't have to work hard for what matters in life, and you don't need true wisdom to get through your trials. It all just comes so easily. And where does Disney want our attention to go? Rey. Theme park attractions to Rey. Celebrate Rey. Forget Luke. As Qui-Gon reminded us, another gem of wisdom from Lucas, your focus determines your reality. And Disney's focus is clearly on Rey. They want to let Luke die. Perhaps this is what they meant by begin to set things right, which is sad and disgusting. Disney is attacking the universal human condition, the very human experience, by murdering Lucas's classical mythos and offering us this inversion of what is real and authentic to our universal struggles. Rey may have the appearance of a hero's journey, even copying Luke's story beats, but without the wisdom-serving function, it's empty, it's meaningless. This is really, really important. I mean, we've now had 10 years to digest and absorb what Disney has given us with their inversion of Star Wars. And to quote A Knight's Tale, they have been weighed, they have been measured, and they have been found wanting. Wanting in our hearts and in our souls, but also wanted for murder, because I'm not going to let them get away with this. Even Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, publicly stated upon reading Disney's version of the most optimistic hero in the galaxy, who is this? Jake Skywalker? And that's exactly right. When you invert and kill Luke's essence and distort the hero's journey, you are messing with the very part of ourselves that wants to believe there's a whole galaxy out there worth exploring. That the universe needs us, needs heroes, and we need to engage heroically. Luke on Tatooine is a representation of all of us before we become more heroic in life. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the universe needs heroes. And guess what? It's hardship. It hurts. It takes a lot to be a hero. You're going to face trials and challenges, and that's the real message from both Campbell and George Lucas. What Disney is doing is messing with the very nature and essence of what it means to be heroic. And that's a scary thought, because kids and adults should not be confused about that. Everyone should learn that if you walk your hero's journey and you do it correctly, facing the challenges and trials of life without taking shortcuts, learning from your mistakes and failures, and using true wisdom, not only do you end up saving yourself, you end up saving the world, even the galaxy. But Disney would rather you stay inside and consume content. They don't want you to be heroic. They say hate is not the opposite of love, but indifference. And if you asked me if I'd ever experienced something like apathy when it comes to Star Wars, I would have laughed at the absurdity of such a thought. Yet here I am, and I don't think I'm the only one. When it comes to the millions of subscribers who've checked out, toys unsold on shelves, television shows not even making the Nielsen ratings, when you have articles being written in the mainstream media about the Force leaving Lucasfilm, trilogies being canceled, people are starting to take notice, and this is all evidence that Disney has created poorly constructed stories that do not appeal to a wide audience. And for me, it all boils down to this. What Disney did to the spiritual wisdom and lessons from Campbell's work, which was at the very heart of Lucas's mythos, which already had universal appeal, the likes of which the world had never seen before, is beyond flagrant, it's murderous. Disney had full reign, sole autonomy to create the stories and characters they wanted us to learn from. They got a chance to pick up wherever they wanted to from what Lucas gave them. George thought his mythos would be safeguarded by Disney, not left in darkness. But that's what Disney did. Disney and Disney alone made every decision when it came to how they wanted to pass the baton on from the legacy characters and what new characters we should go on adventures with. And they did all these things with everything at their disposal that George Lucas did not have when he started. Endless money, a global, loyal, and hungry fan base, and the power and might of a fully armed and operational Death Star, I mean Disney. And there are no do-overs here, folks. Han, Luke, and Leia are gone, replaced with the paper-thin characters of Rey, Finn, and Poe, and I say they should be punished to the fullest extent of the law just for that. The defense is going to try to argue that Star Wars is still making a profit and steer your attention to semantics and minutia, but that is not where the focus should be, my friends. The focus should be at why Star Wars matters, the learning of life, the wisdom of life, the journey of a classical hero, which is your journey, your story. That's why classical heroes matter. I'd just like to ask the jury to reflect upon and consider this question. Is Disney Star Wars wise? Does it contain life lessons and wisdoms you want to share in with your family, your friends, your sons and daughters, your nieces and nephews, even yourself? Because if not, we must acknowledge that this change all happened under Disney's watch. They and they alone are responsible regardless of intent or incompetence, and they should be held accountable. I'm not going to let them get away with it, and I don't think you will either. For Lucas, for Campbell, may the Force be with you all. I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. A couple of comments real quickly. People are mentioning your audio. I would check your wires, make sure that you may want to unplug and re-plug in your mic. I will also say we just have, if we're going to stay on time in court today, you took up most of the time for the prosecution. Mr. Connors and Mr. Ng have yet to present, and you have not addressed count number 6, which is blatant disregard and threatening of fans. That is the count we're discussing today. Mr. Daniel, just very impassioned speech, but I will say that the jury is you've not addressed the actual today's count. Who would like to go next? And thank you, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Connors or Mr. Ng, who would like to go next? And you have a brief moment, and then we will go to cross-examination by the defense. Who would like to go?
I think I can go after that if you want me to.
Mr. Connors, I will. Let's have you go next. Thank you again. Mr. Connors, you have the floor.
Your Honor, jury, I think what Paul presented here was a very passionate point of view from a fan, a very passionate fan, who feels like he's been wronged, and rightfully so. He's lost something very precious to him, and I'm sure he also feels mocked, as is something that our own Mr. Johnson in the courtroom today knows all too well. I present my first piece of evidence to the mockery of the people who are fans of Star Wars, Mr. Johnson himself calling us man babies. If you want to share this Vanity Fair article where he addressed us as such, you see here, called us man babies, and the fans of Star Wars man babies, for dare having an opinion on the film. It didn't sit well with Mr. Johnson. He would continually, in the press and on Twitter, go on to antagonize fans, including where he would pretty much imply that Star Wars is not a serious thing. Well, I think Paul's argument there sounded pretty serious to me. Sounded like he was seriously hurt by what Mr. Johnson has done to the Star Wars trilogy, or Star Wars franchise. And honestly, his second film of the trilogy is kind of ground zero for some of the bigger problems in this entire franchise. In fact, again, Mr. Johnson has also stated that catering to the fans is a big mistake. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not showing the proper thing here. Let me switch that over. As you see here in this IndieWire article, again, misinterpreting what I believe the fans are trying to say about how they feel about this franchise. And this wasn't the only time the fans were mocked. They were, in fact, mocked many times over online by several people involved with Star Wars. We have here is another exhibit. One Andy Gutierrez, who worked for Rebel Force Radio, and was mocking fans by saying they were drinking fan tears. This was not the only time this went on. In fact, Mr. Johnson even partook in this mockery, as I'll share here in another exhibit. So, oops, I just hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. I apologize, Your Honor, and members of the jury, but here is Mr. Johnson himself talking about drinking man baby tears or fanboy tears. And thank you to Mr. Data Racer for compiling these last two exhibits. And the mockery goes on. In fact, a big player in the Star Wars galaxy is one Pablo Hidalgo. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this individual. And what Pablo Hidalgo did is, in fact, one of the most horrendous things, and maybe even could be considered the death blow to the whole Star Wars franchise, when it was on its actual recovery from injury prior to, put on by Mr. Johnson, and Pablo Hidalgo mocked fans for being happy at the return of one Luke Skywalker. So I ask you, and this goes on, we've been called racists, we've been accused of driving people such as Kelly Marie Tran off of social media without any evidence. We've been accused of attacking Jake Lloyd and Ahmad Best when clearly it was the press and his own peers at his school, if anything, were the ones who were attacking him, and the critics at the time, not us, not the fans. I ask for evidence to the contrary if that's the case, because at this point, I pretty much rest my case on this. Disney has done nothing to stop the mockery of fans, and the mockery of fans led directly to the death of Star Wars, as you saw in my last exhibit, with Star Wars Theory being mocked over his tears of happiness for the return of one Luke Skywalker. His hero, as my colleague Paul pointed out, are very important to people. And Luke Skywalker was important to Mr. Star Wars Theory. As it should be to Mr. Hidalgo, I would think.
Thank you, Mr. Connors. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Ng? We're in limited time today.
No, with that, I think the prosecution rests.
Now, I do want to remind you, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Rian Johnson himself, an impersonator of Rian Johnson, is here. If there are any, if you'd like to use Mr. Johnson to bolster any of your arguments. Mr. Johnson was brought up quite a bit during Mr. Connor's presentation. Nothing, gentlemen?
Yeah, let's ask.
Can I defend myself?
Mr. Johnson, you are free to speak, yes.
Fanboy tears. Oh, come on. This is exactly the sort of man-baby arguments that I've been dealing with on Twitter. For me, The Last Jedi 100% distills what the spirit and heart of Star Wars has been in my life. But yes, it is personal. It's a certain point of view, and it has to be, you know. Originals were personal for George Lucas. That's why they're alive. Star Wars films will truly betray the heart and spirit of the originals if they lose that. And, you know, they'll become soulless, clean homages. But being alive means being messy, and it means every film won't line up exactly with what every fan is expecting or wants. I'm sorry The Last Jedi didn't line up with your own certain head canon. Really, you know, honestly, I am, but it is what it is.
Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Opportunity for cross-examination from the defense. Mr. Pixels, Dr. Gordo, you may ask questions of the prosecution, and that'll be very brief, unfortunately, because we're pressed for time today. We need to get to your presentation, but please.
Sure.
I should remind you to cross-examine what was presented by the prosecution.
Yes.
And not present your case just yet.
Yes. I could
Mr.
say something
Pixels?
briefly, and then if Mr. Gordo wants to go. I just wanted to bring... I wanted to mention two things. There's too much to go over. I appreciate the passion of the prosecution, and I agree with them in spirit. However, the evidence does not suggest that the spirit of Star Wars has been murdered. And I'm not trying to present an argument. I want to push back against the Kurosawa, Joseph Campbell arguments. You say, oh, Lucas was borrowing from Campbell, and Disney decided to change courses. However, Lucas was also borrowing from Kurosawa. Okay, this is a hero's journey, but this is also a cinematic experience. And Kurosawa was blatantly referenced in The Mandalorian's episode 4 and 12, with the village and the basic subplot of Yojimbo. So in other words, Disney is still attempting to adhere to the themes of Star Wars, and the aesthetics of Star Wars, at least with The Mandalorian. So I just wanted to bring that up quickly, and not to mention the Mandalorian being a modern day version of the Baby Cart franchise, the old samurai film series. So there's definitely an aesthetic appeal that I think fans appreciate. And I also just wanted to touch on. Oh, do you have a response?
Yes, I do. So I'm not sure, Lofti, if you're aware of Joseph Campbell's work.
Yes.
Since it's the studying of world religions, cultures, and myths throughout everywhere.
Here's a thousand faces. Yes.
Bringing up
Again, we're having the audio issues, Mr. Daniel.
Bringing up
audio is
Can you hear me? Is this better?
Yeah.
We're getting a
uh,
crackle sound.
It's a crackle sounded. It's
Oh.
distracting to the
You may
jury.
have to refresh
I
and
can
unplug.
come out and just switch off the mic. I can just come off and do that.
Yeah.
Come back in.
That works. That works.
Hold on, stand by 1 second. Thank you.
All right.
I could just briefly just say also, I wanted to invoke Rian Johnson quick. Mr. Johnson, you were given no strict guidelines to your second film. In fact, that Disney did failed at planning the entire story, and that's not your fault. In fact, Colin Trevorrow script was canned, and you replaced his version of a potential film. And he went on to direct one of the worst Jurassic Park films of all time in Dominion. And he also,
Objection. I'm not sure what the relevance to this is to the case, Your Honor.
well, the relevance would be that Disney may have seen what Trevorrow was doing, and maybe they made the right
Objection.
decision.
Trevorrow had to do with the third film, not the film that Rian Johnson directed, Your
Sure.
Honor. I'm failing to see the relevance in this case.
That's a fair take. I got them mixed up. I apologize.
Hi there.
Do we have him back? Oh, we do.
Okay, Paul's
Anybody,
back.
everybody hear me better? Is that better?
Yes.
Yes, much better.
Yeah, much
Paul.
Yes.
Excellent. So, Lofty, to your point, sorry I missed
Yeah.
the last 10 seconds or so. Since Joseph Campbell was pulling through so many different cultures and religions and mythologies, George Lucas using Kurosawa is just actually following right in line with
Yes.
Lucas. And just because Disney may use, and I mentioned this in my speech, may use elements, Ray may copy beat for beat a hero's journey, but that does not make a hero's journey. Because if you miss the soul of it, if you miss the heart of the transformation of consciousness, of dependency to independency, if you miss the beats, atonement with the Father, for instance, a huge one that Disney completely dropped the ball on, you begin to see that the argument I was trying to make, if it pleases the court to say, if you destroy the soul of it, everything else is the leaves on the tree, Slave Leia, etc. You start attacking the fans. I believe you attacked the soul of the character. You attacked Star Wars. George Lucas gives us 1 through 6, a perfect saga. You add 7, 8, and 9, and you bookend it with a dyad in the Force and completely try to undo the characters Lucas gave us. I think that's a murder.
Interesting. I guess we are short on time. I have another defense person who would like, if they have something to say. I don't know if you have something to respond.
Yes, Dr. Gordo, and then we will, and then we'll move on for the defense. Defense presenting their argument against the count. We want to stay focused on each count. Dr. Gordo, anything to add?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will be brief. Mr. Daniels, I quite enjoyed your lecture on Joseph Campbell because, I mean, who wouldn't enjoy a good lecture, even though it didn't address any of the actual charges? But now, for those not familiar with the works of Joseph Campbell, was he white?
I believe that comment should be completely thrown out.
Relevance. Your
And,
Honor.
and was he male? And was
Where are
he
you
straight?
going
I've
with this,
never-
Dr. Gordo?
The entire defense case is based upon the beliefs of a dead white male, which is perhaps why Mr. Daniel doesn't believe a woman can show talent within her role. And that's the end of my questions.
That doesn't even make sense.
I disavow my fellow defense's comments for the record, Your Honor. I disavow.
You're allowed to do that.
I'm not
You're
even sure
allowed-
what grounds on, sir. I'm just.
You are allowed to do that, Mr. Pixels. That's fine.
Yeah. In
But I
fact,
will say this:
I'm going to go hide.
it's not
Go
up to me. It's up to the jury. It's up to the jury to decide.
Yeah.
And let's see what the jury thinks now. We've been throwing up some of your comments during the proceedings. Comments that seem relevant. We'll now go to some of the super chats here very briefly. Smazzle19 says, I object. Smazzle19 for 5 says, no further questions. Smazzle19 goes on for 6, says, my lawyer is Frito from Idiocracy. He just keeps accusing me of being gay. Jens Anderson of the Tari Threat Level 1 has been a member for 9 months and says, why didn't you tell me about RRR, Chris? It was amazing. I would say thank you for that, but we're going to stick with our trial today. But thank you, Jens. Feeling Dangerous 113 for 5. So far, I'm guilty on all counts. Litigated so far. Maybe the defense will make sense this time. They have yet to present their case. Mexican Iron Man for 10. Your Honor, upon a guilty verdict, Mexican Iron Bailiff stands at the ready to take LucasFilm into protective custody and place Kathleen Kennedy and her co-conspirators in solitary confinement. Thank you, Mr. Iron Man. 200 Watt Studio for 2. Mr. Ng, thank you for shaving for court today. David March for 550 says, good luck to the defense. There was no way I was touching this one with a 10-foot pole. And David March gifted 50 Film Threat memberships. Thank you so much. I'll say this. If you are a member to our channel, you get access to our Discord. We will have an upcoming episode on July 5th. We'll be doing a we'll be taking a recess from regular court. We will be doing a special episode where only members will come on and the jury will be able to chat together. So thank you, David. That's very generous. The 50 gifted memberships. Michael Maroney for 5. Guilty. Sentence should be carried out in Texas. And Nathan Rodriguez for 5. Disney is guilty 100% for killing off legacy characters, not using Lucas' planned script for the sequel movie, and Disney doesn't care about the fans. Unlimited Power, threat level 2, has been a member for 1 month and says, may the force be with you, live long and prosper.
May the force be with you.
Hayden75 for 5 says, Dr. Gordo did give us a perfect representation of what his client would say. Dr. Gordo, you may have lost points with the jury on that one. Are you prepared now? Is the defense prepared to... Oh, wait. One last... just came in here. Aki for £9.99 says, Your Honor. I think Your Honor, not Your Horner. This is a historical event. Please be aware of the significance of this hearing. And I will say, I will actually emphasize that I am shocked at the people that I have invited on this live stream to debate the proceedings and debate this case. People that I formerly had respect for that have, in a cowardly way, denied or just rejected an opportunity to be a part of what we're trying to do. And so what I want to do is congratulate everyone here on this live stream now for your courage in standing up, whether you're on the defense or the prosecution, to be here in my courtroom. You've shown a lot of courage, so I thank you all. And Aki, thank you for the 999. Now, moving on, it is now time for the defense to present. We're discussing count number 6. Oh, and Rumble Left Cross supporter Nana, I think it's your Horner because of that X-Ray Girl pick. Thank you for highlighting that comment, Mr. Ng.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Okay. Who would like to go first in the defense? And we're on limited time.
I have a planned defense that I think I can plow through here in a limited time-ish way, if that would be okay.
Mr. Pixels, you have the floor.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, although I may be projecting via hologram today, I am with you with the Force. I stand before you not only as a defense attorney for the Galactic Empire, and not only because Mrs. Kennedy is threatening me if I don't win this case, but as a passionate Star Wars fan. My fondest childhood memories were playing KOTOR 2, Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds on PC, building Lego TIE fighters. So I'm with you. And I appreciate the passionate response of the prosecution. However, as a matter of law, it's important that we separate our passions from the objectivity of the evidence. As for the blatant disregard, which is the charge, the count 6, and threatening of fans, I encourage the jury to pay close attention to the contextual evidence presented here, as opposed to the sentiment or the room temperature heated debate in the community itself. In other words, the facts and not the feelings. The facts are as follows. Disney did not willfully or intentionally divide the fan base in a purposeful way. I want the jury to reflect on the Poe-Finn relationship in the sequel trilogy. I think we can all agree that the appropriate term here for their relationship is a bromance. Two men who are in an intimate relationship with one another on an emotional level, yet any sexual or romantic entanglement is never fully implied or embraced. This is a very popular trope that we see very often across the industry and fans of all spectrums. Look at the success of Hannibal with Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter, or The Punisher Season 2, Frank Castle and Micro, or Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. These relationships are adored by the vast majority of fans, and I would argue that this is because the writers refuse to insult their audience with any romantic cliches. Now, if Disney or any of these studios really had the malicious intention of alienating the fan base, as the charge clearly states, and purposely dividing the fan base, the most efficient path to this division would be to inject an explicitly gay romance into the trilogy. This would not only empower many of the fans on the social justice left, but would certainly alienate many of the fans who have been very vocal about this kind of pandering to LGBT communities. Disney did not do this. In fact, I have a clip, exhibit number 1, Your Honor, of Oscar Isaac himself reinforcing what I'm saying here. And I'm going to post this. Unless you would like me to share my screen, I can post it in the private chat.
Is it possible for you to share a screen so that we may see this brief clip?
Yes. So let me go to. Give me a second here. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go to the Star Wars IGN. Okay. Now I'm sharing the audio as well. Okay.
Okay.
So this is 1 minute long, and then I'll get back to my defense.
Okay.
I might even skip ahead slightly, to be honest.
Love story there. You know,
Can you hear this?
Hasn't quite been explored yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. These two men in war that could fall in love with each other.
Oh no. Oh, Cameron, you're alive. Buddy. You completed my mission, Finn. That's my jacket. Oh. No. Keep it. It suits you.
And I would try to push it a bit in that direction, but the Disney overlords were not ready to do that.
Hey, Finn, huh? Finn, I'm gonna call you Finn. Is that all right?
Okay, that's enough, Your Honor, to prove my point here. Let me get back to my defense here. You can. So, the clip you just watched is not my opinion injected into this conversation, nor was it the opinion of the writers of the Disney executive. In fact, we refer to them as the overlords. This is the opinion of one of the stars on the show, the actors. He has no agency. He is merely a tool presenting the story. Actors have no agency whatsoever. And we should really not take what they have to say seriously. I would argue that Oscar is actually incorrect, and the vast majority of Star Wars fans were perfectly okay with Disney's decision to prioritize the bromance over any LGBT representation. This was done in service of the fans. In other words, Disney had zero intention of alienating their audience. This is just but one example. I could point to the nuanced relationship between Rey and Kylo as a successful platonic relationship that did piss off some Reylo fans, as we know, who are not quite as powerful as they seem to be. And then just to wrap up this defense here, and then I can pass it off to my fellow defenseman. I wanted to address the slave Leia and blue milk controversies in the count that was provided. As for the flagrant reduction of the importance of slave Leia, I would like to point out that the original trilogy has not been altered or changed or erased her slave outfit from canon. It's very much there. You can buy the films right now and watch them. The merchandise, on the other hand, has been dialed back as clearly a response from parents voicing concerns about these being shown to young children. And I would say that I would hesitate to call this a flagrant act by Disney. It seems to be more of a reasonable response to reasonable concerns. I understand if you disagree, but I'll leave that up for the jury to reflect on in the deliberations. And then finally, as for the blue milk, I mean, come on, this is a serious courtroom. Your Honor has taken precious time out of his day to see that justice is served in light of some other serious allegations, and I find it embarrassing and unprofessional to resort to attacking the color of milk in a criminal case. Yes, it's disgusting, but it's 3 seconds of an entire trilogy that doesn't rise to the level of criminality, and I just wanted to.
Objection!
Yeah.
Blue milk farmers' lives matter, sir.
Objection! No, they don't. I'm sorry. In closing, I just wanted to say that many of these changes and updates to the fandom may be alienating. They may seem intentional or malicious. A lot of them are very poorly executed. But I believe there's evidence that suggests the prosecution is cherry picking here. They're using flowery language. And they're ignoring the reality of the situation, which is that Star Wars is simply struggling right now. It is not a dead or murdered franchise. The evidence suggests that Andor is a very popular television show, and a lot of Star Wars fans like the show. So I just wanted to end with the hope, the theme of George Lucas's Star Wars is we must have hope. And this franchise and our hobby can come back around again. Just look at what Star Trek is doing at the moment, and I believe we should all have hope, and I hope the jury agrees. Thank you for your time, Your Honor. I pass it along to my other defendant.
Thank you, Mr. Pixels, for your presentation. Dr. Gordo, what would you like to add?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Pixels. Before I continue, Disney sent me this Kool-Aid to drink before I continue with the case in this beautiful Burger King 1980 Empire Strikes Back glass. Awesome, good Kool-Aid. So Disney obviously takes this charge very seriously. Otherwise, Mr. Pixels and I would not be here today. Many people have been watching these trials over the last few weeks, and a committee to defend Disney Star Wars has been formed. They have sent a letter to the Disney Corporation, and on authority of the Disney Corporation, I will now read the letter into evidence if it pleases the court. It has recently come to our attention that there are some concerns over the state of the Star Wars franchise. Normally, we would ignore wild allegations, but if there's one thing we do well, is to care. The Disney Corporation has loved almost all the peoples of the earth, as reflected in our diverse and sometimes talented writers. While we cannot action everyone's ideas, we strive to be inclusive and equitable with certain points of view. However, we will not tolerate hate. As much as Disney loves small minorities, we will not have this small minority spreading hate and lies. All those who believe in everything we do is welcome at our table. There are too many beautiful things to be bogged down by these so-called protests from half the audience. It is simply a case of a very loud and bitter individuals trying to convince others that there are problems where there are none. They are just not getting the message. For example, it is sickening that in 2023 that some audience members want to see Slave Leia. What self-respecting fan wants to see a beautiful woman in a skimpy outfit all chained up, defending herself?
Is this a question you would like to ask?
Is this certainly not us?
Is this a question, Dr. Gordo? You asked a question. Is this a question you'd like to ask?
No, rhetorical, Your Honor. Again, I'm just reading a letter here from...
I see a giant smile on Mr. Ng's face. Mr. Ng, you may answer the question.
Yes, we do.
Oh, very good then. So, if I may continue with the statement, these pro-slavery and anti-feminist individuals have no business in the fandom. Disney Star Wars will continue to provide positive entertainment that is suitable for the whole family, edited by region. In regards to accusations of subpar merchandise, we can assure members of the jury that we only do business with the finest Chinese workshops that have received the coveted seal of approval from the party. We dare these lying misogynists and racists to look into the exhausted little faces of these workers and say, sorry, do better. No, you do better. As for our theme parks, it is simply not true you won't see your favorite character. We must ensure there is room for new characters that will entertain new generations of fans for many decades to come. Not only do we accept people from many different backgrounds, we also accept many forms of payment. Please come on down to our parks. We beg you to see for yourselves, and we'll sure to have a nice blue glass of milk waiting for you. There are many exciting new adventures for your favorite Star Wars characters in the works, including Rey. We invite you to all sit back and lose yourself in the magic that is Disney Star Wars. The future is as bright as a hyperspace tunnel. Sincerely, the Committee to Defend Disney Star Wars. Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm curious about the validity of that letter, but I'll just take your word for it, Dr. Gordo. Prosecution, you may cross-examine the defense briefly, and then we will take a recess and then follow up with open debate. Mr. Daniel, Mr. Connors, would you like to
first
have questions?
Yes, Your Honor. As far as Dr. Gordo, I have no idea what he just said. As far as Mr. Pixels, you talked about flowery language, which was interesting to me because you said that an actor was talking about shipping characters, and the thing is that we've actually had a writer who's confirmed the sexuality of an individual, and in fact, I would say this is pandering to an audience. I bring an exhibit here, whatever number it is. Star Wars writer confirms that Donald Glover's character is pansexual in Solo. Yeah, I mean, right there in bold letters.
I mean, first of all, this was not in the film. It can be implied. It can be implied, but that's my first take. Second of all, I don't see an issue with a space smuggler, with his personality being a bi or whatever that word means. I feel like this would be a very common thing in the galaxy. I don't have a problem with it. You may have to make an argument against it. I just don't see the issue.
No argument there on the in the part of whether or not a character could, should, or would be. That's not the point here, Mr. Pixels. The point you tried to make, though, while accusing the prosecution of flowery language, was that Disney was not guilty of this very thing that they're doing right here in this article that you said that they weren't doing. And in fact, I have another exhibit here where you claimed that Rey and Ben had no sort of romantic relationship. I don't know about you, but if you Skype with somebody as long as they did through the Force, that sure does feel like there's a relationship. And I think this here says everything it needs to say.
Do you know what this says to me, Mr. Prosecutor? This says, I feel bad that you're dying. I'm going to give you one last little gift before you die.
I don't know. I think that's up to the jury for interpretation here. This kid seems very romantic to me. But that's just my opinion, I guess. So,
may I?
The other point I wanted to make was, I guess, to Dr. Gordo did say one thing that made sense to me, I guess. And that was the audience leaving the franchise. So I bring another exhibit in here again. I believe I shared this before, but I reestablished this exhibit, and that is the box office take of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, going from $2.069 billion down to $1.078 billion, ostensibly losing half of the audience. If you want to share that image, you can. That's up to you guys.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, that's all right.
Got it.
There you go. So just for a visual aid there, but yes, I think that says all it has to say about driving the fans away.
But also, let me add just one more image from The Force Awakens. Let me pull it up here.
I would say I agree.
Of The Force Awakens, featuring a same-sex kiss as the rebellion takes.
Oh my goodness! What an act of terrorism! We might as well just bunker.
Objection, Your Honor, to that outburst from Mr.
If I
Pixel.
could just, Mr. Ing, I need to correct you on that. That is from the ending of The Rise of Skywalker, sir.
Was that Rise of Skywalker or was that Force Awakens?
It was Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
That was
Right.
Rise of Skywalker, correct? That was the end of the entire franchise.
Mr. Ing, I expect you to do a better job at your homework when
Oh,
attending.
these movies just
like
blur
your role.
together for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
May I address the court?
I do agree with that as well. The movies are a blur, not very memorable.
Mr. Daniel, you had a comment, please.
Yes, I do. I want the jury to recognize what's happening right now. I believe I did address the charge, the flagrant, poorly constructed stories that do not appeal to a wide audience. This idea that Rey and Finn and Poe and the relationship, this is all the nerd minutia. This is supposed to take place in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's the mythical dimension. This has nothing to do with whatever Gordo was saying and anybody else is saying. This is about how do you destroy and cut off half the audience? You destroy the hero's journey. You destroy the classical mythos. If you want to create another product that goes against what Lucas gave us from 1 through 6, 2/3 of a product, and then you want to go take it somewhere else, that's totally fine. But if you're wondering why the audience is divided in half, if you wonder why people are turning away and then being called names for it, it's because you're going against the classical myth that Lucas gave us. All this arguing that Lofti just gave and whatever Gordo just did is the nerd minutia. This is not what we should be talking about. Star Wars matters, and when you destroy classical characters that mean something to people, where they sing John Williams, they want to dress up like Luke, they want to embody their wisdom of Yoda and go about their lives and try to be better people, that is what I think this charge is referring to. And when you destroy the bark, the root of something, everything else being debated, what the Reylos, the this, the that, has nothing to do with it. This is about Star Wars matters.
I will just
Finn and Poe having an almost relationship is such nerd minutia. This is a mythical dimension, long time ago, galaxy far, far away, not Earth 2023. Nothing to do with it.
I am simply saying, if Disney was intending to divide the fan base on purpose and side with a specific version, a specific side of the fan base, they would have gone much further with it.
No, you do that by destroying classical Greek characters. You do that by destroying the myth.
Well, the myth is not destroyed. The original trilogy still exists, sir.
No,
and
this is
Luke's journey
This is
ends.
well,
Luke's
for
journey ends with a defiant sacrificial death, and I don't know how much more powerful of an ending you can have.
Who's sacrificial death?
Luke Skywalker.
That's how you see that Episode 9 ended. It wasn't focused on Rey.
No, I'm saying Luke Skywalker's journey ends with him defiantly sacrificing his life.
That's what Lucas gave us. The charge is Disney has destroyed the mythos that
Disney
Lucas
gave us this in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that was not a sacrificial death, even comparable to what Lucas gave us.
I think the jury would disagree.
He literally phoned it in, sir.
He wasn't even
literally died. He literally died in sacrificing a myth. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled.
Excuse me, Mr. Pixels.
Yes,
the jury,
Ryan.
I've been monitoring the jury's comments. The jury would like to hear from Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson, I want to remind you that Mr. Johnson is here. He takes no side. He is not on the side of the prosecution. Mr. Johnson is not on the side of the defense. He is here to. So perhaps we can hear from Mr. Johnson on the last comment.
I mean, he literally sacrifices himself at the end of the movie. This is kind of a stupid hill to die on, I think.
It is. It is. I agree, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Zer. I'm sorry, Zim. I agree, Zim.
I mean, take your pick. It's okay.
Mr. Zum, may I ask you a question, Mr. Ryan?
Yes, please.
Do you believe in good? Do you believe in good versus evil?
Look, the goal is never to divide or make people upset. But, I do think the conversations that are happening are going to have to happen at some point if Star Wars is going to grow and move forward and stay vital. I mean, George Lucas made a gorgeous 7-hour-long movie for children about entitlement and fear of loss that turns good people into fascists. And, he did it while spearheading every early technical difficulty of modern filmmaking of the past 30 years.
Mr. Johnson, if I may, you said George Lucas made a 7-hour movie for children. Do children have money?
No, but
Okay, but parents have money, right? And they buy toys for children. Would you say your film has anything in it that would make a child want to go out and buy a toy? Or have their parents buy them a toy, I should say?
BB-8, Your Honor. BB-8, Your Honor.
That's from Force Awakens, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's also in The Last Jedi, but I'm sorry.
as an auteur, I can't say that my heart is in selling toys, and perhaps I was not the best choice for that aspect of the lore building. But I think I added a lot of thoughtful aspects to the proceedings.
No more questions, Your Honor. I believe that the defense and Mr. Johnson are just doing everything they can to make our case today. I mean, this is...
Well, Mr. Connors, let me
up
remind
to the jury,
you.
Mr. Connors. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Your Honor.
Yeah, it's up to the jury to decide. So, Mr. Connors, you can imply whatever you would like, but it truly is up to the jury, Mr. Connors. I think we've heard both sides.
Can Mr. Johnson define a glass onion?
Hey,
we may have time for that.
Luke is in fact 100% consistent with his character, not the way he's described in marketing blurbs, but his actual, based on his words and actions, character from the original trilogy. I'll be at the bar if you need me.
All right. Well, you can retire to the bar for a brief recess, Mr. Johnson. But I expect everyone back here in court in about 2 to 3 minutes. We have time for a brief bathroom break to take care of any personal business, and we will move to open debate along with a poll question. Our poll question will be, who do you think won today's argument? The prosecution or the defense? Again, you are the jury watching. You will decide. We are now going to take a brief recess. Thank you all for your attendance today. I expect you back here in just a few minutes.
Star Wars. It's great in the arcade. Whoa! TIE fighters! Fireballs! Coming right at me! Watch the laser towers. Aim for the tops. Pick in the cutouts. Use the force. They're coming too fast! It's late! It's late! My shields are gone! Alright! I'm going in!
Centella, el nuevo helado espacial de Subway. Centella, tu helado de las galaxias. Con tu Centella, pide el sobrecito sorpresa donde vienen láminas de Star Wars para coleccionar. Centella, tu helado de las galaxias.
Kein Problem mit nur einem Streifen Chewbacca Chewing Gum. Für galaktisch frischen Atem. Chewbacca Chewing Gum. Galaktisch frisch.
Star Wars is a modern-day fairy tale, which I really like because it took me on an adventure. I really understood robot R2-D2's feelings when he was scared and when he was crying. I especially like the special effects, especially the moving monster chess figures. My favorite part was when the stars, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Chewbacca the Wookiee were stuck in the garbage compactor, and just as they were going to be squished, the wall stopped moving. I liked the film, but there are some parts that were hard to understand, such as how a simple boy from the country can fly a spaceship and shoot a gun and hit right on target. And that Princess Leia was sure bossy.
I did research to try to distill everything down into motifs that would be universal. I attribute most of the success to the psychological underpinnings, which have been around for thousands of years, and the people still react the same way to the stories as they always have.
So what lessons do you think they're taking away from watching Star Wars in Italy and Malaysia and South America?
The average human being has much more awareness of the other cultures that coexist with them on this planet, and that certain things go across cultures, and entertainment is one of them, and film and the stories that I tell cut across all cultures, are seen all around the world.
If I feel like Star Wars is very patriarchal, and clothes make the man toxic. Yes, yes. Just because you're a stormtrooper in the Empire doesn't mean you can't look fabulous. The first order of business must be uniform, and uniform doesn't mean it all needs to look the same. Accessorize. Long live the matriarchy.
Court is now back in session.
Yes.
We are now moving to open debate. Mr. Blackwood, I see a black screen. Mr. Blackwood, ironically.
He may have drank too much blue milk, Your Honor. He may still be in the bathroom.
It's possible. Mr. Blackwood, we were hoping to see some of your sketches during the proceedings. Oh, Mr. Blackwood is
Your Honor,
left us for the moment.
I have
I
some
believe he was
breaking
protesting for something.
I have some breaking news, Your Honor. PP69 has just informed me that there's been a bounty hit put out against one of my defense partner, and I cannot disavow the bounty. That's all I will say.
All right. Well, look, I want to remind Mr. Pixels, this isn't Flashcast.
Yes.
This is a courtroom.
Sorry. What is Flashcast?
This is a courtroom, and I expect you to abide by rules of the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Blackwood, are we having some technical issues? We were hoping to see some of the sketches that you've done. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood.
Wow.
Okay. I think that's Mr. Johnson. Continue, please. Are there any more?
Yeah.
All right.
What would you like me to speak on?
Mr. Johnson, when you look in the mirror, what do you see?
Well, and that's a very appropriate of Mr. Ing. Mr. Ing. Well, there you are.
The director of Looper.
The director of Looper. Oh, yes.
The frame of my $1,000 mirror in my bathroom.
Mr. Daniel.
Mansion where I live very comfortably on diamonds.
Mr. Connors. And
gentlemen,
did you change your photo, Mr. Ryan Richardson?
Oh,
Who is
yes.
that?
This is a very favorite photo that I have of me and Ray here. It's Daisy Ridley. We love playing with filters on our phones.
Okay, sounds good. All right, now we're moving to open debate. It is now open debate. The prosecution and the defense may just argue, and please, if we could try to stick to the count 6.
Yes.
Count 6 is.
Yeah, I'd like to open specifically with count 6 and the blatant disregard and threatening of fans. And I feel like we've not really addressed this issue adequately. This is the issue that today is basically focused on. But let me bring up the most recent example of this, and that is of the character Reva, and from the Kenobi series. Judge Gore and we have spoken critically of the character, not the actress, but of the character itself. If we were critical of the actress, it was in the way in which she was portrayed. And it seems like that a lot of the criticism of Reva has been described as racist or examples of racism, which led one Ewan McGregor to post a video with his shock and dismay about the racist comments and tweets she has been getting, which I will admit she has probably gotten, being a person of the internet and a celebrity. That is kind of par for the course for anyone. But but no one has ever really talked about the quality of her performance, and they're just writing this off as being a racist thing. I'd just like to open that up for comment. Do you feel like that this is a case in which fans were treated unfairly for something legitimately bad?
Well, I can say I've never actually seen any of these supposed racist comments. And it felt like they sure went on to the defense for something they weren't even being accused of in the first place or thrown at them, and they were trying to use the racist tactic to deflect from legitimate gripes and criticism, which usually were lobbied more towards the writing of the character and the caliber than the actual actress.
I would agree with Tom, and I would also say that if you haven't been making racist comments, they are not talking about you. So, and in fact, they're not talking about the majority of the fan base.
But I don't think that was ever stated. I don't think Ewan McGregor ever said for the small minority of critics.
Yes.
I would like to condemn your comments. It appeared that he was referring to everybody who was criticizing the character and the actress.
Well, I as a fan, I didn't feel attacked at all because he wasn't talking about me. And I feel like everyone should feel the same if you were not blatantly being racist. And even Ryan Kindle himself a few weeks ago has demonstrated he gets horrifying DMs as a smaller public figure than any of these people. So I don't doubt that it happened. I just think that if you weren't participating in it, you shouldn't feel threatened by Disney because they're not talking to you. That's just how it is, Your Honor. Oh, this is open debate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is.
This is open debate. There are very few rules here. I mean,
That's
right now it may as well be Flashcast on a Saturday night. So
let me go get my whiskey.
Let's go. No, I want to add to what I'd like to add to what Alan was saying and Tom as well. That I think this is a tactic, and I think when people have attacked characters, from my perspective, which I believe is in line with the charge, when you don't create something that has wide appeal, when you poorly construct stories, which is written in the charge, that do not appeal to a universal audience, which Lucas already had created and given on a silver platter to Disney. And when people respond to that and they say, I don't like these characters, they don't feel like Star Wars, they are not Star Wars, the tactic is respond back with racist charges, etc. Just strafe out and hit the audience. But the Star Wars fan, again, to bring it back to what matters, is just feeling like this isn't Star Wars. And when they object, whatever tactic they want to use, racist, misogynist, I believe Dr. Gordo said old dead white man in regards to Joseph Campbell, which is just insane. I think, again, that's just a tactic. But the Star Wars fan who loved what Lucas gave us, the mythos is why we love it. It's not just lightsaber battles. We care about the heart of these characters. And when you see Kenobi, even the mentioning of the show, where Vader and Kenobi are supposed to fight outside of what Lucas clearly gave us, and people are like, I don't understand. This doesn't feel right. And even if they tune in, it's just off because they're messing with the classical heroes. And I'd love to throw this out in the debate and throw it to Lofti and Dr. Gordo. Do you think they continued the hero's journey in any respectful kind of way? If you want to do something different, call it something else. You have a whole universe to explore. But to make 7, 8, and 9 and call it the end of the Skywalker saga with what they gave us, do you think that is okay? Because
I'm not a fan of the trilogy. I believe I've said that before. In fact, I think the Rise of Skywalker maybe even be worse than The Last Jedi. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just I think we have a different opinion about the trajectory of the franchise going forward. And I will say that I believe I don't know, I could be wrong, but I believe my fellow defense attorney is a false flag plant meant to make me look bad by the prosecution, and I would like to see his credentials.
Well, then, so you agree that the wide audience appeal, which Lucas said the success of Star Wars was to the psychological underpinnings that he pulled from Campbell's work, which is my main argument. How do you divide a fan base? You invert, you distort, you twist, you hijack the meaning of heroic characters, which what we connect to, and you give us something totally different. You just said yourself then, you didn't even really connect that well with Jedi or Skywalker.
I did not, and I think I do believe you're partially correct, but you're also partially wrong. I think with The Force Awakens, Abrams was clearly trying to reboot or copy and mimic what Lucas was doing with A New Hope. So you're making these grand statements of objective reality. It's like, well, you're partially correct, and you're also partially wrong. They did in some areas attempt to reimagine or continue the Joseph Campbell sort of mythology in some ways.
How? So if you take Rey, the quintessential character, which I cited in my opening, the way that she goes about, there's a great line from Iron Man. He says, if you need the suit, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have it. Yeah. And this is Rey. If she take the powers away from Rey, what is she? She doesn't fail. There's no humility. If you look at Luke Skywalker fails from Tusken Raiders, Wedge bailing him out during the trench run, needs help in the cantina, constantly fails, gets his arm chopped off.
Yeah.
Falls, is constantly in
his life.
failure.
Yes.
He puts his weapons on against Yoda's advice. You do not need them. He goes in. He's failing constantly. He needs X-Wing fighters to drag him out. Rey does not fail. And if you want to destroy the appeal to a wide audience, you take away and you give a Mary Sue character as the heart, the new Luke, and you make our attention go to Rey and not Luke. And I think that is a destruction of the mythos. Where does she fail? She's the same in 7 as she is in 9, just with new powers.
I would say I mostly agree with you. I would say that given the fact that they didn't have a planned trilogy and that it was hodgepodge.
Whose fault is that? The multi-billion-dollar corporation?
Yes, it was a hodgepodge of.
Thank you for agreeing with the prosecution then. Thank you.
Yes. Oh boy, now I'm.
That's awesome.
See,
are you a false flag? This is great. This is
Kennedy
great.
going to kill me, isn't she? No, I will say that Rey, although I don't like the character, I feel like her flaws are in her mental state of mind. She is obsessed with learning about her past, learning about where she came from.
Where does she fail?
Well, the failure would be to waste time and energy focusing on things that
That's
you
not
can't
failure.
control.
Where does she fail? Like Luke trying to lift the X-Wing. And you can make carbon copies,
That's
right?
fair. That's fair. That's a
Where
fair
does
argument,
she
sir.
fail?
Yeah, I would say that Rey
that is-
bypassed the hero's journey.
She bypassed the heart of all of us.
Yeah.
We relate to Luke because he failed. We don't
That is
relate to Mary
That is a
Sue.
fair argument, sir. That is a
And
fair argument.
not to change the subject a little bit, but Mr. Pixels brought it up earlier, and I guess we can address Mr. Johnson on this part.
It's not Mr. Johnson. It's Mr. Richardson.
It's Richardson now? I have no idea who we're talking to anymore. Basically, the idea that Mr. Johnson wasn't given any guidelines to go by, but at the same time, don't you think it would still make sense to at least read the script or see the previous film? I mean, it boggles my brain. There's not. I would like to have one example in the history of filmmaking
The previous film.
Sorry,
what's that, sir? Mr. Johnson.
Objection, Your Honor. I did see the previous film. It was on in the background at a big Hollywood party while I was talking about my favorite Alfred Hitchcock and Stanley Kubrick movies.
There was
with,
lots of sauce there.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis. This was shortly before he lost the ability to have conversations about his favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies.
Excuse me, Ryan. You keep changing. But people are coming into court late. Some members of the jury are joining late. They may be confused. You may want to update your name on there so that people know exactly who you are.
I'm sorry. It changes by what I feel at the moment.
This is exculpatory evidence.
I think that people are missing something very crucial to this conversation, and I should stay out of this, but were any aspects of force use in the original trilogy, force grabbing, for instance, of grabbing objects, force ghosts, even the Jedi mind trick, were they explicitly set up before they happened, or did they just happen? I'll take my answer off air.
That's why the hero's journey matters, because whether you're talking about Lord of the Rings, Marvel, Matrix, whatever vehicle you use, if you're on board with the characters and they're well defined and well written, like Luke, Han, and Leia, and they have their clear territory, as Harrison Ford even said in his interviews, Luke is the callow youth. I'm the smuggler. I'm the smartass. When you have your areas to relate to, these nerd minutia, I have to keep saying this, about all the other stuff is secondary. It's about what Lucas wanted to do. Will you ask the big questions of life, the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, the Romeo and Juliet tragedy? Do you feel that? That's what matters most. Everything else about to Jedi mind tricks, and these are vehicles for something to be translated to people, and kids got it. People got it all over the world, and they lined up outside the Chinese theater and everywhere, and they were blown away because they had not seen modern myth in that way, updated and presented the way they did it. And Lucas cared so much about myth, so much, he gave up his DGA, his WGA, and his Motion Picture Association credentials so that he could keep people in the mythical dimension.
He even gave up his own creation. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Do you have anything to add? We're talking about the trilogy, by the way, but this spans. Well, I'm saying you are specifically talking about the trilogy. This spans through all of Disney Plus and Disney's entire history with Star Wars. Do you have any positive feelings towards the Mandalorian's seasons? And not the third one. I'm understanding it is poorly. I haven't seen it, and I cannot comment on something I haven't seen. But for example, the Sanctuary episode where he's, helping the small village and protecting them against the community's raider attack, stealing their harvest. And this is straight out of Yojimbo. This is straight out of Kurosawa. Do you have any do you have anything to say about what they're at least trying to do there in that show specifically?
I think what they're doing, if you have these offshoot spin-offs, if you will, Mandalorian, etc., it's okay to have these things in theory. Yeah. But again, I have to bring it back to what matters most. If you stray from the classical journey, and again, this isn't, I have to abide by a formula. Matrix, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, very creative differences, but the hero's journey is there, and it's very solid, expressed differently. If you keep people involved in their hearts with what they're connecting to, and they're learning something, it doesn't matter if it's Mandalorian season 5. If you start to lose the trust of the audience because they're watching it and they're going, I'm losing trust. Alan has mentioned this. Your Honor has mentioned this so many times, that when you do storytelling, and this is why, again, the heart of poorly constructed stories, when you take out the heart of Star Wars, what matters, and what's the heart? The myth. When you take that out and you give people the trees and the little treats, if you like Mandalorian, fine. But are you learning from it? That's what's going to keep you going back to it, because we keep revisiting what
learning
Lucas.
From it. Where did you think the blue milk came from?
It's irrelevant to me.
You were imagining.
Why was it green in your movie, Ryan?
Why is Luke jaded and bitter? That's what matters. Why is Luke Skywalker?
Why is Logan jaded and bitter in his Old Man Logan graphic novel and the movie?
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's funny to
which was very successful, by the way. Why is Logan bitter and old? Why is that okay and not Luke?
Because he's not Luke Skywalker.
Well, they give us good reasons in the film and the stories as to why. They did not give us good reasons as to why Rian Johnson decided to do this to our boy.
And this has to be said. I would love to hear Lofty's thought on this. If you know Campbell, the atonement with the father is so crucial. It's so crucial. It's one of the steps of the hero's journey. What they did with Kylo was they had him have a memory of his father, and he was redeemed. And from that point on, the storytelling in Star Wars said he's a hero. From the point he throws his lightsaber away and has a memory, which again, George Lucas gave us 1 through 6, the whole tragic fall of Anakin being redeemed by Luke. And you're supposed to go along with Kylo is now a hero because they decided he should be. Not because he earned it, not because he did the right thing and really atoned with his father at one-mint atonement. He didn't do that. He didn't earn it with us. So then he goes and becomes a hero. He murdered his father. This is destruction of myth. He did the unthinkable. He murdered his own
Mr.
father.
Johnson, Mr. Johnson, I directly would like to ask you what did you do and why did you do it to Mr. Snoke?
I did 12 wipe transitions, okay? I thought you fans were going to be happy. 12
See?
wipe transitions.
Kurosawa wipe transitions and horizon shots.
What is your problem, you man babies?
It's cosplay narrative myth. It's not myth. It's just, it looks like it. It's cosplay narrative.
Your Honor,
Johnson,
I must
can you
point
answer
out
the
that Mr. Johnson's actually doing exactly what Disney and Star Wars are being charged of in this count.
You know, I'm always amazed how few people know about Gamergate. You know, it explains many violent harassment campaigns going on today. You know, it's a lot of the
Objection.
same people angry about the same stuff, using the same playbook. You know,
You're surprised, huh? Is that surprising? I was surprised to find out the killer in the Knives Out Part 2 like 5 minutes into the movie, but that's a different kind of surprise, isn't it, Mr. Oh, now
I need
arguing
to
into the fucking prosecution side.
excuse me, language, Mr. Pixels. Language.
I'm so sorry, Your Honor.
Order, out of order.
I need to say, and remind members of the jury of a couple things. One, there's still time to vote on who you think should win today's argument, the prosecution or the defense. But I'll say this to all of you here in court today. You've not addressed, I believe, to the satisfaction of the jury, and I'm only basing it on the comments, you've not directly addressed count 6. Count 6.
I did, Your Honor.
If you might, before we announce who won the debate today, please your final argument, and please
what
keep
is
it.
count 6, Your Honor?
I believe my whole presentation.
Mr. Ing, would you read? Mr. Ing, would you read count 6, please, for the benefit of Mr. Dixon?
Yes, I will truncate it. The offense of blatant disregard and threatening of fans, telling a poorly constructed story that did not appeal to a wide audience, and attacked fans for false claims when they criticized the finished product. The aforementioned disregard and threatening actions include, but are not limited to, blatant ignoring half the audience, attacking fans with claims of misogyny and racism, and purposefully dividing the fan base. That's the general gist of the argument that we have not. I feel like we have not truly discussed.
Well, look,
I mean, I addressed the blue milk, Your Honor. I addressed slave Leia, Your Honor. I addressed the purposeful division of the fans in my statements.
I too feel like I addressed all these counts.
Me as well.
Everyone, 30 seconds to a minute to make your final argument. We will go to the poll to see what the jury says. So about a minute each, around starting with Mr. Daniel.
Sure. Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say there's a line from Top Gun where he said, "Did my old man do it right? Did they stick the landing, basically? Did they do this right? Did they end it right?" And from my opinion, all the misogyny, racism, attacks on fans come from people who are rejecting the very core of what they gave us and what they did to Lucas's classical mythos. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. It doesn't look like Star Wars. And here's the thing: they had all the money and they had everything behind to make it happen, but they didn't. And I think all the tactics that corporations are using in the political realm, it doesn't even matter. They'll just attack. I don't think that's where the focus should be. They divided the fan base because they destroyed the universal appeal of Star Wars, which was already there. They didn't have to create it.
That's a fair. I'll wrap up in my statement. I believe the count is a bit of an exaggeration. Like I said, I think they haven't ignored the audience. They just delivered a poor story. I feel like in other areas of the Star Wars universe, like I said, The Mandalorian, even though it's not great, it's touching on some Lucas-esque, mythology, imagery, things like that. And in general, I think, does the trilogy suck? Yes. Is it terrible? Yes. Is the blue milk disgusting? Yes. Is Rey Mary Sue? Yes. However, going forward, I don't think this the franchise is a dead franchise. I think there's room for improvement, and I just maybe this is my version of hope, as you will, as a fan of where I wish Star Wars would go, and I think it's just floundering at the moment. I think we're dealing with some very incompetent writers that are now on strike, conveniently. So we will see, is my my position, and I think the jury should side in my favor because it is not a dead franchise.
Final remarks, Dr. Gordo. Did you want to add something to your colleague?
No. Well, here at Disney, we're just simple storytellers. We just want to entertain families, and we understand that there'll be a few that don't always enjoy every one of our stories, but we know the vast majority of the people love everything that we're doing. Of this, we are fully convinced, and we will continue in this manner. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Connors, your final remarks before we reveal the results of our
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about myth. The story of Star Wars is built on myth. The only myth I see in this court today is the defense, and their lack of.
I'm very real. Just because I'm a hologram, I'm stuck on Tatooine.
Representation here,
Mr.
because,
Tom Connors.
and as far as the slave Leia thing, which is I feel the only thing I may not have addressed in my arguments today. Here's exhibit for you. Did anybody bother asking women how they felt about this? There's a lot of cosplayers that this is a very popular costume for. In fact, our own Judge Gore has been seen in slave Leia uniform, I believe.
I guess, Your Honor, that Mr. Connors, I guess that women would disagree with Princess Leia herself in the that Vanity Fair article where she talks about it being inappropriate. And that Daisy Ridley should pursue a more powerful role as a woman.
Well, that may be, but I have this exhibit, as I said here, if you want to share this.
Please share, Mr. Connors.
I got it. Hold on.
I mean, I think many of these women feel and look very happy and look like they're doing what they want to do to me. And the other fact that we talked about is the fandom. How they have treated the fandom has eroded this fan base. My colleague gave a very impassioned speech about how the stories were ignored and how he feels that it has ignored the fans when it comes to storytelling. And we've also talked about how they've pushed the fans away to the point where over half of them have left. And this is just the main trilogy. This isn't getting into Solo and other films that have lost money. In fact,
yeah, I actually see your well laid out argument. My dick.
I think we should. I think the evidence.
Could you repeat that, Mr. Johnson? Could you repeat?
I was just saying that I actually can see and understand, and agree that you should not, kill off a villain without explaining they're my dick.
Your Honor, I move to say that nobody's ever actually seen Rian Johnson's dick besides himself, so there's no actual proof that it exists.
I motion to dismiss.
I motion during slave Leia too. That says
I motion to dismiss the sexy women photograph. I feel like the jury has now completely forgotten about the entire defense. And is just focused on that one image.
It's already in.
This is unfortunate. This is unfortunate. Oh my goodness.
We need to have order in the courtroom so we can proceed here. And I'll say this, Mr. Johnson, please. If I might add,
my dick.
If you are on
my dick,
if you're on the internet, you should refrain from looking up
my
Chris Gore Slave Leia. I will just ask you to refrain. We don't need any more controversies. So there you are. And Ms. B. Coffee, if you might post in a starred comment the results of our poll when you're ready. Shut down the poll so we have the percentage.
I haven't heard a single argument here today that stands up to any scrutiny whatsoever. Not one. Not a. I mean, except maybe that one.
I have anxiety at the moment.
I look at today as an absolute win.
Is it about my dick?
Mr. Johnson, I would ask you to please restrain yourself.
Yeah, it's okay, Judge. I'll restrain my dick.
All right, let's take a look at the results of our poll. In just a minute, I will be reading some super chats here before we get to that. Guess who for 5 is Gordo working for the prosecution? Up to you. You are the jury. Sammy Scott for 2. Lofty and Gordo both argued for the prosecution.
I just want it known on the record, I've never met the doctor in my life. Now, I've known Pixel Lofty for a while, but I can't speak to his convictions.
Sammy Scott for 2 says Luke's story ends in episode 6. Cameron Durant Cameron for 499. Any chance of getting Shadversity on so we can make this a trial by combat? I will ask him. Doppler radar. This Lofty guy makes me sick. Thank you.
I make myself sick as well. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Machat has become a YouTube member along with Max Relax. Doppler radar for 199 says ban the VTuber. Dude is SJW. For the Emperor for 499. I want to put a motion forward of hostile witness. And Darian Murphy for 199. I object to how Dr. Gordo pronounces Disney. And there you go. And also want to thank our mods for their help today. Lord Thoth, Zax, Mexican Ironman, Gritterin Masters, and Paulie from Latino Slant. Now, the results of the poll. Who do you think won the argument today? It was overwhelming. 94% for the prosecution, 5% for the defense, with 476 votes. That is the highest. That is the highest percentage yet recorded in these proceedings. That's the largest win ever.
That is disappointing to hear. Can you highlight my screen for a second here? I have the response.
Sure.
This is just sad day for the Empire.
Do you need to share screen?
Share your screen?
Yes. No, I just wanted to blow up my screen up for a moment. I have to.
Oh, sure. Let's do that.
The jury.
Okay, cool. All right, here we go.
The jury voted, but this is the consequences this is the consequences. They talk about consequences, and here they are. So I think you guys made a mistake, and you better watch yourselves on the way out the door today.
Your Honor, I want it noted that the defense is threatening the jury.
I'm pointing at the wall, Your Honor. I'm pointing at the wall. I am pointing my gun at the wall.
The finger should never be on the trigger, by the way.
That's what she said, but I will not. I will take this away. I will take this
Your
away.
Honor, I am personally triggered. Oh, it's a pun.
So you want a safe space? Is that what you're saying? You want a safe space? You can't take a bit of edginess.
Hey, I'm
triggered. You're triggered.
It's Joseph Campbell. That'll help you.
Through your mind, child.
And by the way, that was not Rian Johnson's dick. That was an AR-15.
My dick.
And with that, we have one last super chat here.
Oh my goodness.
Wait just a moment. Sammy Scott for 5 says props to the defense for coming out here and deciding to just give up and swap sides, but props to everyone, even Gordo, for coming out and entertaining. So there you go. Ending on a positive note. Court will be back in session next week. We have an all-star lineup. I believe we have Anna, that Star Wars girl. We have Andrew from we have Legal Mindsets. We have an actual attorney who will be here, and some other surprise guests and surprise witnesses. Court will be in session as per usual, 1 p.m. Pacific time here on the Film Threat YouTube channel for Critics Court. We will be debating Count 7. And there you go. Gordo shot first. And that's a good way to leave it. I want to thank our members of the defense, members of the prosecution. I want to thank Jesse for his comments here as Mr. Rian Johnson impersonator. And I want to thank members of the jury. I want to thank you so much for your attendance today. We appreciate it. That's it for Critics Court for today, and we'll just we'll end it at that. Just a moment. This is I think it's important that we all take a look at this right here.
No, go back.
I think it's important that we take a look at
is
Rian
that
Johnson's
me?
dick.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
You didn't draw my droid.
Tongue kiss.
Members of the jury, you are dismissed. Court
there he
has ended.
Thank you for having.